Starting a question today from Just Go Blue says, what are your top two surprising performances, positively and negatively, of this team under Lloyd Carr and Jim Harbaugh, Michigan's last two national championship winning head coaches? I'm going to answer that question to start today's Michigan Football Report, but with spring practice starting tomorrow, I need 30 subscribers. Had a staff meeting today. Anybody who doesn't get 30 subscribers loses studio time. The video today loses studio time the rest of the week. So subscribe to the Michigan Football Report if you want the inside scoop on the Wolverines all spring practice long into the summer, into the 2025 National Championship. We'll see season for this team. We've got that and more coming up right now. Look at those guys. I think, Jack, are they holding an iPhone there? Is that what that is? Phone to phone? That's when I'm pretty sure this is like a meme. It's like, do you see what Yoder said? They're watching a video of ours. I think that's what it is right there. Lloyd Carr, picture there, turned to the side. Jim Harbaugh. So I'm going to answer the question. I kind of put together two surprising wins, two surprising losses, and I'll mention a couple others here on the show for each of those guys. We'll talk glory days, right? Harbaugh, little Lloyd Carr. Then we're talking about who could be underperformers for this Michigan football team, positions that could underperform, not meet expectations of the fans, but also just expectations of the program and the position. And then NIL money bags. Is it here to stay, or is it a one-time thing for Bryce Underwood? I've got some insight there we'll talk about towards the end of today's show. But let's talk about Lloyd Carr. Let's talk about Jim Harbaugh. And this is kind of like Lloyd Carr was my coming of age as a sports fan, right? My middle school and high school and college years, Lloyd Carr was the head coach. And then, Jim Harbaugh is my recent history, right? And where I came up as a media personality on this show, on Twitter, elsewhere. And I wanted to kind of just, I spent some time thinking about it. And there's so many. And you guys are going to say, that's not one. That's terrible. That's a bad answer. So it's up for debate, and that's fine if you're a Michigan football fan. But here's what I came up with. The most surprising wins for Lloyd Carr, ones that I did not, maybe either I expected to win and they just outperformed expectations, blew them out, or expected to lose and they even kind of did a little bit of the same there. So how about 1997 Judgment Day? Jack, you weren't even born yet probably, but this is one of the great days in college football history. The top four teams all playing each other. It was either like the last week in October or early November. I think it was early November, like November 4th, 1997. You had number 1 Florida State versus number 3 North Carolina, number 2 Penn State versus number 4 Michigan, all 4 undefeated teams, same day, Judgment Day. And this is in the era, Jack, where there was no college football playoffs. There's none of that. So losing, you're out. And Michigan went in to Happy Valley, number 2 Penn State, and just murdered them. It was 34-8. It could have been 55-0. That's how great Michigan played that day. And it really got the Charles Woodson Heisman Trophy campaign kicked into high gear. Then in 2006, right, Michigan had a really brutal year. Lost 5 games in 2005. A couple just infuriating losses in 2005 to Ohio State, to Wisconsin, to Nebraska to end the year in the bowl game. And they're starting off the year, I think it's the 3rd game of the season, against the number 2 team in the country, Notre Dame, a national championship favorite or co-favorite along with Ohio State that year. Michigan went into South Bend and destroyed them. Chad Henne to Mario Manningham, I think 3 touchdowns in the first half. Michigan 47-21. So those are surprising ones, right? The next year, the most devastating loss maybe in the history of sports, Michigan top 5 team, national championship, one of 3 or 4 teams people think could be a national championship team in 2007, bringing everybody back. Jake Long, Chad Henne, Mario Manningham, Mike Hart, and they lose to App State 34-32 in the home opener, get a field goal blocked as time expires, and that's one of the most devastating losses in history. And then 2004, right? Ohio State won the national title in 2002. Michigan beat them 35-21 in 2003. And then Michigan's on their way to a Big Ten championship, which they still won even with this loss in 2004 with a freshman quarterback, 2 freshman running back, and they go into Columbus against a 4-loss Ohio State team and get blown out. It says 37-21. It was worse than that. Ohio State team, that kind of propelled them to a great 2005 season and then to a national championship game and Heisman appearance in 2006 and a Heisman Trophy for Troy Smith. This is really really his coming out game along with Ted Ginn for Ohio State. So top two surprisings, top two losses. Other surprises, 2005 Penn State. Michigan beats an undefeated Penn State walk-off touchdown, Mario Manningham. 2007 Florida, Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow. Michigan just ran up down the field with that team and beat them pretty handily. I think it ended up being a one-score game, but Michigan definitely out kicked their coverage and certainly expectations of the fans. So I'll go through the Harbaugh's a little bit less detailed here. Surprising wins. 2001 versus Ohio State, right? And people say, well, that wasn't that surprising. Michigan dominated that game. They won by 2-3 scores, yada, yada, yada. Okay, that's fine. But in reality, Michigan had lost 8 straight to Ohio State at that point and had been blown out, absolutely blown out in 2018, 2019, no game in 2020. Michigan fans thought they were going to win, but that performance that day was one of the most surprising under Jim Harbaugh. Really cemented that 3-year run that led to a national title. And then went to Columbus, right? And it wasn't just the winning by 22 points, but it was the way they won it. A team that was very relying on handing the ball off to Blake Corum for 6 yards, 5 yards, 4 yards, was 75 yards. Touchdown, Cornelius Johnson. 75 yards, something like that. And then Colson Loveland, 40-some yards. And then Donovan Edwards, 75 yards, 85 yards. J.J. McCarthy, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. Very surprising. The losses, right? 2018, Michigan beats Ohio State. They go in there favored by 3 points against a team that just given up 50 the week before to Maryland and gets blown out 62-39. Went to that game, Jack. Sick, sad day. And then 2020, Michigan State. Michigan was favored by 3 touchdowns. It was a 20.5-point favorite, and they lost. And that season just absolutely spiraled out of control at that point. Michigan goes 2-4 in the COVID season. A couple other ones positive. I think the streak of 3 straight ranked wins in 2018 was really strong. Wisconsin, Michigan State, Penn State. The Michigan State game, if you guys recall, back in 2018, Michigan went on the road and beat Michigan State, who was ranked in the top 20 at that time. It was the first road win that program had since the 2006 game I just told you about when Michigan went into South Bend and beat number 2 Notre Dame. They went 12 years without winning a ranked game, beating a ranked team on the road, and that was wild to let it stretch out that long. But let me know where I missed, right? Comment your most surprising win under Lloyd, Carr, and Jim Harbaugh. So give me a surprising win where the team surprised you, how they play, how they won the game, down below in the comments. Some more questions coming from the Instagram account, Michigan Football Report. Luke Neal says, who is the most underrated player on our current roster? Well, how about this guy, right? Well, not that guy, Jake. That guy right there. Brandyn Hillman, right? Just a stick, just knocks guys around, just throws his body, throws his shoulders into players. And you recall last year, first 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks last season, I was calling for him to maybe be a starter, maybe over Makari Page, but he never got the snaps that I think he deserved. And he was named, he's been named by a bunch of Michigan football players as one of the hardest workers, hardest hitters, biggest playmakers on this team. I think he's going to have a hell of a season in 2025, hopefully in 2026 as well. And we just had Will Johnson. Do we have that clip of Will Johnson? All right, cool. So we'll come back to it in a second. But I am excited about the future of Michigan football with Brandyn Hillman in the secondary in a starting role because of his reckless abandonment, his ability to make plays on the ball, his ability to knock the ball out of guys' hands. And he kind of reminds me a little bit of Quentin Johnson when he would get in there in those spot plays and he'd be like, whoa, who the hell is that guy? Now, Quentin Johnson never really became a true player and a true playmaker at Michigan, but when he got in there and had the opportunity, he made plays. We got the Will Johnson ready? Will Johnson was asked about Michigan's top returning defenders at the NFL Combine by our Matthew Peterson last week. Here's what he had to say.
Will, who's the best player returning on Michigan's defense?
Well, that's a good question. I'll say the best guys I see returning are Derek Moore, Ernest Hausman, Jayshawn Barham, and Brandyn Hillman. Brandyn Hillman's going to be a good one for sure.
We put a bunch of those clips on the channel as YouTube Shorts and then some interviews. We had, do we have Will Johnson in there? We had Will Johnson. Guys interviewed Donovan Edwards the entire time and others. Go check him out on the YouTube channel from a couple weeks ago. Brandyn Hillman. I think he's going to be an all Big Ten first or second team player in the secondary for Michigan this season. Up next, the 2025 defense. Will it be better or worse than the 2024 defense? Might be surprised on my answer. But
before we continue on in this Michigan football report, don't worry. James will be back. But here's producer Jack. I want to tell you guys about the sponsor of today's video, and that is Factor Meals. Are you ready to optimize your nutrition this year? These Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes. So you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and add-ons. I'm going to tell you what, guys, I absolutely love Factor. We work long hours here at Chat Sports, and being able to heat and eat in 2 minutes, I know James loves Factor, and that's why I love Factor as well. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code FACTORPODCAST to get $50 off your first box plus free shipping. That's code FACTORPODCAST at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Now, let's get back to the Michigan Football Report.
Bill Graves with the question, a very, very good question. How good is this Michigan defense going to be? Hashtag Michigan, and then Bosa beat Ohio State again. Let me answer that question in a moment. Did want to ask you guys to follow me on Twitter, as I personally am approaching 17,000 followers. So have 16,965 followers here on the Twitter, the X. So if you're one of the next 10 people to follow me here on March 17th, I will follow you back. Now, I'll also make this deal. If you followed me in the past, I haven't followed you back yet, just hit me with a DM or reply to one of my tweets and say, James, no, just make it a DM. Follow me back. Where's the follow squad? 10 people today as we put this video out. No exceptions, no excuses, not going 11, not going 12. First 10, go follow me. Link is down in the comments description. It's at James Yoder on Twitter. Let's take a look at the starting defensive line this year, right? Because I think that's what's going to come down to. I feel strongly about where Michigan's at in the secondary. I feel strongly about the starting linebackers, at least. I've got Rayshawn Benny, Derek Moore, no surprise. TJ Guy, no surprise. But Trey Williams is an interesting one to think about. He was a 4-star recruit, right? Top 100 guy in the 2020 recruiting class. But in 5 years at Clemson, he really didn't do a ton. But when I did watch the tape of him, he looked exciting. He looked, a guy who could jump off the ball. He looked like someone who was a high-level 4-star, who was a top 100 player. I just don't know why he couldn't get it done at Clemson. But I think a lot of people, not just myself, are penciling him in as a potential starter in that interior defensive line next to Rayshawn Benny. 16 tackles last year, as you see on the screen, 3 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. I think we're going to find out more as we go along spring practice here, but he is one to watch. If he has a breakout final year, kind of like a Mo Hurst did in 2017 or something like that, then this Michigan defensive line could be as good, maybe not as good as last year, but they can be good enough with the pieces around them in the secondary and in the linebackers to be a better defense all in the 2024 University of Michigan football defense. Jason Barham and Curtis Hausman will undoubtedly be back at the linebacker position. I know there was some talk about Barham moving down to an edge position coming off that defensive end. I don't think that's going to happen because Michigan just did not get a guy in the transfer portal that could step in and be a starting caliber linebacker for this team. So you love your starting linebackers, both returning. Neither one of them look to the transfer portal themselves to have a payday or anything like that. And here's what we've got in the secondary, right? Some new faces that you might, at least one new face, he might not be familiar with. TJ Metcalf, starting safety last year for Arkansas. 2 years out of high school. That was a 2023 recruit. Rod Moore returning. We've got Brandyn Hillman, who we talked about here just a minute ago. Zeke Berry was at safety last year, but remember, when Will Johnson got hurt, he moved over to corner. I think he played pretty damn well. So that is my starting secondary for this team. You got the defensive line, you got the linebackers, you got the secondary. I think that team, all in, if you get play from Trey Williams, if TJ Metcalf turns out to be, a high-level performer, at least where Makari Page is at or better, this 2025 defense can and probably should be better than what we saw in 2024. But the answer of this question will be left to you, the viewing audience. Which defense will be better all in end of year? Who will we be talking about as a better defense, the 2024 Wolverines or this upcoming 25 Michigan football defense? Just comment for me, 24 or 25. I'm going 25. I'm optimistic. We'll see what you guys think down in the comments. Instagram question from Dave H. Pruden. Which position group is likely to underperform this season? With spring practice getting underway tomorrow, let's get a deep thought about this. Now, underperforming, do we think versus expectations or underperforming to the expectations of the program? So I combine them. I put 50% on both those. What we think they're going to do, based on past, and what they should be doing, given that should be a top 10 program, top 10 team every single year. Number one is going to be wide receiver. Not expecting much of them. Bringing in a couple guys, triple transfer guys, one from Indiana, one from UMass, etc. And then the expectation is that this should be a program that has great wide receivers, has the ability to pass the ball, which they currently do not. So I've got McCulley from Indiana, Derek Moore, and then Samaj Morgan. Moore had a nice last couple games. I think he had a nice catch in, was the Alabama game, Ohio State game, can't remember. But Samaj Morgan, sometimes more talk than production from Samaj. Kendrick Bell, Amarian Walker, Peyton O'Leary, Channing Goodwin. And then Simpson is the player that I am interested in. Anthony Simpson, right? Has had some real nice production at a smaller school, but he is transferring in from Michigan. So I think this wide receiver group, I am expecting them to be the most underperforming position group against expectations, combined with what we expect from them. Not expecting much, but we should. And they probably won't give us much, but we will see. Hope I'm wrong. Offensive line. And people think that's just going to be plug and play with Sherrone Moore. I don't know about the offensive line coach. I talked about it on past shows. I'll talk about it on future shows. But Evan Link is a weak link. You've got a small school guy, Brandyn Norton, coming over. You've got Lawrence Hatter, who could be another Division II guy, ultimately could be starting there. I think we might be, early in the season especially, think that this offensive line is underperforming, and I think they could be perceived as an underperforming group based on the last 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and beyond of Michigan football program. And this next one might hurt you. It might hurt you to see this. I've got defensive line. Because, again, what did you lose, right? Michigan's expecting you to go from Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo to the 2022, 2023, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant. You've got playmakers all across the board every single year, interior, outside, defensive edge. And do we have that this year? Rayshon Bennett's in his 5th year. Is he really a high-level NFL playmaker? I don't know. Derek Moore has shown glimpses, right? Maybe his best game was his most recent game, but I haven't seen it every single game. TJ Guy, really, going his 5th year, has not been a starter yet, and you have to rely potentially on either Damon Payne Jr. or Trey Williams, guys who couldn't get it done necessarily at the high level at Clemson, at Alabama, to be a starter on the interior defensive line for this team, or Trey Pierce, who's not really done anything from a recruiting perspective coming up in this program. So just setting expectations. You might see running backs, maybe even quarterbacks, right, that are outperforming expectations, right? Your secondary could outperform your expectations. But these 3 groups, I think, are the ones we have to key and focus on that could underperform based on what we expect typically from them, what we expect from the program, and we'll see how things shake out. Your question to you guys, excuse me, which position group will underperform based on my criteria in 2025? Go down and comment. Let me know why you think that as well below here on YouTube. Michigan, Michael. What's the NIL plan going forward? Is Michigan a playa? I'm going to sip a drink of water here. Woo. Is Michigan a player? Was Bryce Packages a one-time deal? Let's talk about what I know, right? What I was told. Let's talk about the Ellisons first. And other people have stepped up for sure. It's not just them. They're not the only ones. But where did this arrive from? Where does this happen? Is apparently they got married without anyone knowing, which is surprising for one of the top 5 richest guys on planet Earth. But she's a 2013 Michigan grad. Loved watching Michigan win games, beat Ohio State again, right? That didn't happen really as much when she was there as a student. And then you go on, you win the national championship game, and then this year happens. And then you lose to Texas, right? You're talking trash to your friends, lose to Texas, and then you lose another game. You lose another game. You lose to Indiana. You lose to Illinois. Not happy. So she says to Larry, okay, Larry, I'd like to see Michigan win. That makes me happy, right? If you're Larry Ellison, if you sold 1% of your Oracle stock, it'd be about $2 billion, right? That means Michigan could give $50 million. He could give $50 million to Michigan for the next 40 years, right? I was told that's what he's done. Not necessarily sold the stock or anything like that. Don't let it crash the markets. We're not influencing markets here. But that the Ellisons and Jolin, his new wife, have pledged anywhere from $25 to $40 million in perpetuity as long as either one of them is alive. Now, he's an older guy, right? I think he's 80-some years old. She's in her early to mid-30s. And so Michigan should have a nice NIL stockpile going forward. Now they're not going to pay $4 or $5 million for every single player. That's impossible. You can't get everybody. You can't have a player, a roster versus of $2 and $3 million players. 100 guys, that's $200 million a year. The math doesn't add up. But Michigan has this pledge to them going forward. And even think about that, right? Interest rates 4.5%, 5%. You could put that $1 billion in U.S. Treasuries, right? You got $40 million right there just based on interest. People are doing this all over the place. Warren Buffett's pulled most all of his money out of the stock market. He's got $300 billion in U.S. Treasuries. He's making billions of dollars per quarter right now just on interest. Larry Ellison, be a smart guy. Put it in Treasuries. Get that rolling. Get the ball. Build the nest egg. Michigan football. Jolin, she wants to be happy. It's all circular, brother. It's all circular. So the answer is yes. The cash flow should continue. But I do think there's got to be some. I think Sherrone Moore, as the head coach, has got to understand if you're going to have the war chest of war chests in college football, in college athletics for NIL, you got to get the wins on the field. I think Jolin and Larry are expecting a national championship in the Bryce Underwood era that they helped make happen. Reminder: we must get 30 subscribers on today's show, or else is all I was told. So go ahead and subscribe, youtube.com/MichiganTV. Till I see you next time, go Blue.